Hi everybody, it's me, Julie, and I wanted to kind of walk you through the PowerPoint for Unit 4, as I think some of this is some very important information, and I wanted to explain some things that I've learned along the way and that can be very helpful, particularly perhaps to new counselors coming into the field. So you will have to excuse the background noise. I'm actually at a McDonald's in the Northwoods of Wisconsin because I lost my internet connection and I need that for what I'm doing. Anyway, so we're looking at Unit 4 and we're talking about enhancing client motivation to change. So let's take a look at some of the basic counseling skills that we can use. There we go. So the reality is that even with some brief interventions, we can be effective catalysts for change for clients if we are using skills effectively and getting clients to recognize their own reasons, needs, and needs for change. So we really need to look at opportunities, even if they are short in duration, as just that, opportunities to hopefully make an impact on people. And sometimes we'll see these in such places as listed here, such as hospitals, emergency rooms. I used to work on a crisis team, and we would often get calls for clients who had come in under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and as they were sobering up, we had the opportunity to go and meet with them. So think of what it is that you want to accomplish in that short amount of time. So let's take a look and move forward. The reality is that people go to see, the modal number of times that clients will go to see a therapist is actually 1. So that means that the majority of people who go to see a therapist go like 1 time. And so if we think about making that important client counselor connection, that they're building on that therapeutic relationship, we really want to also consider the fact that many don't come that frequently or will come for that long of a duration of time. So we really want to try and do all we can to capture them when we have the chance. So the reality is that if we're using some of the skills that I'm going to be talking about, it really does help to improve retention, and it can also be an entry point for step care. And what I mean for that is that sometimes somebody may need really a higher level of care, but they're really kind of on the fence. They're very ambivalent. They're in the contemplation stage of change, and so if we can get them into a treatment at a lesser level of care, even though they may really need something a little bit higher, we kind of let them try their way, so to speak. We don't go against the resistance, we roll with it. It could definitely help, because then as clients realize, like, hey, my way hasn't worked, they're more likely to go on to a higher level of care, or agree to go on to a higher level of care, I should say. So the FRAMES model talks about providing feedback to the client after you do an assessment, giving them some feedback, also giving them some feedback potentially about some recommendations, but really letting them know that that they're responsible for their own choices, which goes to autonomy. Clients always have autonomy and the right to make their own decisions. So sometimes we'll give advice and some suggestions, but when we do that, we really want to offer a menu of options. So I am a huge 12-step supporter, but the reality is that some clients are not going to go to 12 steps, or they don't feel a connection with the 12-step program, or whatever the case may be. So I like to offer my clients other options, such as Smart Recovery. I'm drawing a blank at the other one that I, Celebrate Recovery is the other one. But I try and offer them a menu of options, and then I ask them what they think out of those options might work for them. We definitely want to demonstrate empathy and let clients know that we really understand where they're coming from, and we want to help bolster their self-efficacy or their belief that they can actually recover. So we have to think about that therapeutic relationship and how important it is, because oftentimes a good predictor of dropout is the counselor who is assigned. And what I mean by that is some counselors do not roll with resistance. They are a little bit more directive in telling clients what to do, and I, in all my years of doing this, have found that the best way is to let clients make their own decisions, even though I may not agree with them. Of course, I do share some of my concerns, but I support them in whatever decision they want to make, meaning that I don't agree with the decision, but I'm going to try and keep them as safe as possible by talking about safety plans and things like that if they aren't willing to quit entirely. So just a little harm reduction technique that I use. Well, the question then becomes, how do we actually enhance motivation for change? And when we look at the stages of change, we want to use some interventions at these different stages that can potentially move clients toward the direction of change. So let me give you some examples coming up. One thing we want to listen for is what they call change talk. So if you reviewed the PowerPoint on motivational interviewing, it talks about change talk. And what change talk is it's talk that is in favor of change, and it's little things that we hear the client say. So for example, if a client is exhibiting a desire for change, they may say something like, I want to. So in my own life, I want to stop eating chocolate. That would be wonderful. Maybe not forever, but maybe a little bit more in moderation. But when you hear clients say things like, I want to, I would like to, that would demonstrate that they have a desire to make a change. If they're exhibiting or providing dialogue that supports the ability, they would say something like, I could or I can. If they are talking about reasons, they might say something along the lines, well, if I quit smoking weed, then my probation officer might get off my back. Or, I would really like to stop, I would really like to control my diet better so that my diabetes isn't so out of whack. So with that statement, we hear a little bit, I would like to, which is desire, and then the reasons, so that my diabetes isn't out of whack. When we hear them talking about need, they will say something like, I need to do this, I must do this, I have to do this. I have to do this or I'm going to die. I must do this or I'm going to lose my kids to DCFS, things like that. And then commitment talk is really, I will, I'm going to, and they're making the commitment through verbalization. Need and want are good in and of themselves, but what really needs to happen is that people need to believe that they can do it. And so again, we look at self-efficacy and what confidence they have in their ability to change. And sometimes we have to do things to help, again, promote that self-efficacy when they're feeling as though that change isn't possible, they're not sure if they can do it. Some samples of evocative questions that we might want to ask, are given here. So if you're interested in finding out about somebody's desire, you might say, how might you look for things to be, how might you like for things to be different? For ability, it might be, if you did decide to quit, how could you do it? Et cetera, et cetera. And so you can read some of these examples here, but think about some of the questions that you might ask that would get the client to answer things such as desire, ability, reasons, need, and commitment. So one of the things that I found helpful when I was doing some training for motivational interviewing, I've done a bunch of training for motivational interviewing, but Christiane Ferentinos had shared this slide, and she has given permission to use it. And I really like this because if you see here, when we're met with some resistance talk on the client's part, like, I don't want to quit, I don't have a problem, I really don't think I'm that bad. These are some of the tools that we can use when we hear that resistance talk. If we begin to hear some ambivalence talk, I really don't want to quit, but, I think I'm starting to think I might have a problem. I really don't want to quit, but I would like my relationship with my wife or husband to improve, et cetera, et cetera. These are then some of the tools that we can use. When we start hearing change talk, these are some of the tools that we can use. And so some of the things that I like are to reflect back to the client, and then what you hear them say, and then offer an affirmation immediately after that. And we can also use some elicitation skills. We can ask them what some of the pros and cons of, how would your life be better if you were to stop X, Y, and Z. You might have them do what's called looking forward. If you were to stop, what would a day without drugs or alcohol look like? Or how might your life improve, or what might it look like if you were to stop? What would it look like 3 months from now, 6 months from now? Same thing with looking backward. But looking backward is a little bit different. How were things different before you picked up, drugs or alcohol? So those are just some of the example. And again, we're really trying to get people to use what we call DARN talk. And we're trying to elicit through our use of skills and questions, them to talk about their desires, abilities, reasons, and needs. And then when you hear commitment talk, when clients are saying, I will do this, or I'm committing to doing this, these are some of the things that we want to do. We want to make sure that they have social support and that they're connected. We want to talk about relapse prevention skills. We want to do some skills building through use of CBT, which is one of the treatments we took a look at on one of our discussion boards. And then what I do is I always will, motivational interviewing teaches us that we should really, before giving advice, we ask permission. So I might say something to a client, something along the lines of, other people have told me some ideas and some things about what worked for them. I would like to share those with you. Would it be okay if I did? So I'm actually asking permission to give them advice, because sometimes we don't want advice, right? We have a problem. We just want to kind of vent about it. We don't really want the advice or want the input from somebody. So it's kind of respecting that. And usually, in my experience, is that curiosity killed the cat, and clients will definitely say, yes, I'd be interested in hearing some of those things. And then again, I would follow it up with a question similar to, so which one of those do you think might work for you? Or, what do you think about what I just said, or some of the suggestions I offered? And then if they really can't identify anything, I might say, well, what is it that you think might work for you? And so those are some of the things that we can do when we hear commitment talk. Offering, again, assessment feedback. Sometimes if you do, I'm trying to think of like the MAST. If you have somebody do the MAST, you offer them the feedback from that, identifying that, this is how, a normal drinker would be, or an average drinker, or a non-problematic drinker would drink. This is kind of how you're doing it. So that's just an example of some of the assessment feedback we would give. One way is to hopefully collaborate through significant others, family, and friends of the using person. And I encourage everybody to take a look at CRAFT, which is Community Reinforcement and Family Training. And it's through the use of the client's significant others that we can really hopefully make a difference. And they are taught how to reinforce abstinence and how to avoid reinforcing use. So for example, one thing they're taught is okay, don't give the person money if they're going to go out and buy drugs with it, right? And it's sometimes hard. I do understand that families want their loved ones to be safe, and so sometimes they would rather give them the money than, say, the addict go out and steal for money. But we really try to support the family, our loved ones, the significant others, and teaching them some skills as well. And we also, teach them how to reinforce for abstinence. So, for example, it might be some quality time together that, hey, if you see this, if you see your loved one doing well, that maybe you guys go out to dinner and a movie, or, it could be anything, but, how to provide positive reinforcement for that. It could be, through dialogue of, hey, I'm really proud of you, things like that. So again, they're taught some of these things, and they are, again, provided with some support for themselves. So, but CRAFT is wonderful and can be very helpful. So we also want to talk with clients about removing obstacles. So for example, if they don't have transportation to treatment, or they don't have transportation to 12-step meetings, or, things along those lines, maybe having bus passes for them, or finding a volunteer within the 12-step community who's willing to, pick them up and take them to meetings, things like that. And then, really think of some of the other things that you might have to do to remove obstacles for clients. one thing we definitely want to do is if clients are going to be connected to other resources, we really want to do that while they're in treatment. So for example, when I worked at a residential facility, before the client left that facility, they had an appointment at their PHP program, they had an appointment with their individual therapist, they had an appointment with the psychiatrist, or whatever resources they were connecting to. So it wasn't that they were leaving us and then like, here's some numbers, good luck with that. We really wanted to make help it be a smoother transition for them, and that really does help to make a difference in clients then connecting to the next level of care or the next resource. So think of some of the other ways, again, that you might help clients to remove some obstacles. So that's all I have for you guys tonight. I hope that everybody has a great holiday, a very happy Thanksgiving, and just looking forward to hearing some of your input on the discussion board and wrapping up class. Okay, thanks.